Hello Commander community, I'm Paul the Commander Theorist, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering video. So today marks the third day in our coverage of Spoiler Season 2018 of Commander Precons 2018, and perhaps the day I was most looking forward to. Today's video will cover the Bant-colored Enchantments deck, which is known as Adaptive Enchantments. Oh, hit that like button, cause here we go! My first predictions for this deck was that it was going to focus on an Enchantress style build, similar to the one used by Milius on game nights. Will it measure up to my expectations? Will the long-awaited exploration reprint quench my thirst? Let's dig into some neato enchantments. Starting off today's spoilers is Crash of Rhino Beetles. This 5-mana 5/5 has trample, and it'll get +10/+10 so long as you control 10 or more lands. Woo. That is absurdly strong in terms of being a giant battering ram. If you drop this thing late game, then you are bound to have 10 or more lands chilling in play. You get a 15/15 with trample. Step aside, Emrakul, there's a new beat stick in tow. Wait, you're stuck in the moon, never mind. This card really isn't much more than a ginormous tinny card, but you know what? It's a simple card. I'm a simple kind of commander guy, and if an overgrown giant beetle thing is what the kids are playing these days, who am I to judge? Next up is Octopus Umbra, which I believe is a new totem armor card. Spoiler alert, this deck does focus on totem armor as an overarching mechanic, which we will talk about in depth later on once the Google search page loads. So the creature enchanted by this becomes a base power 8/8, which is pretty much your standard octopus. And whenever it attacks, you can then tap down a target creature with power 8 or less. So this seems really interesting. You can plop this on something pretty small and suddenly it becomes monstrous at 8 power, and whenever it attacks, it taps down pretty much anything mid-sized sedan or smaller of a creature. Also, should that enchanted creature be destroyed, you can elect to just destroy the aura instead. Simple gist of totem armor. I can really get behind this card. It's a nicely costed card, and it really strikes me as a Voltron control kind of deal. Something Derevi might enjoy. Derevi, Imperial Tactician? A commander of another Bant deck. What if that is just the true nature of Bant is... I have the memory of a robo-dwarf hamster, so I might need a refresher on what the Shard of Bant is known for, but oh my god! Anyway, Imperial Storm is next, and was I assume this deck's Commander Storm cycle card. For 6 mana, you get a 4/4 Flying Angel creature token. You also get an additional copy for each time you cast your commander this game. So at its worst, you get a single angel token for 6 mana. At its best, you'll have an army of flying angels swoop in. I'm really on the fence with this one, as being a longtime fan of token decks, my earliest being Risk the Redeemed. I feel this will have a better go in a deck dedicated to tokens with an inexpensive commander. While playing this in a deck under someone like Tristani or Gave, both viable token commanders, that's fine and dandy. I just don't feel as though it's practical or worth it over something like Entreat the Angels when you have to rack up enough castings of your commander to get a decent amount of value out of this. Now, in something like Reese, whom I feel would be perfect for this, being a 1-drop commander makes it possible to abuse, as if you need to cast Reese 3 or 4 times to get enough copies from this card, you'll be paying substantially less mana in the long run. But even then, do you really get that much value out of this? Next! The Heavenly Blade Master is a 6-drop 3/6 with flying and double strike. Okay, pause right here. Just throwing this out here, while I love double strike as a mechanic, I'm going to say that I've gotten a bit annoyed at some recent double strike creatures either being absurdly small or being given double strike at the expense of having half the power that I'd expect from the creature it's on otherwise. Would it really make the Blade Master here so much more broken if being a 3/6 rather it be a 6/6? Oketra too. Like, I get that in Commander, being a big creature with double strike means that you're more lethal with commander damage, but throw me a bone with some of these, okay? Okay. Anyway, when the Blade Master enters the battlefield, it can snag up any number of auras and equipments that you control and attach it to itself. I'm already loving it. It's very Voltron-y, and other creatures that you control get +1/+1 for each aura and equipment that's attached to the Blade Master. Now, that's what I'm talking about. This card is built for Voltron-style decks. Not only does it present itself as a magnet for all the equipment and aura, sort of like Balan Wandering Knight, but it also will support the rest of your team the more stuff it gets attached to. Very nice. You know what? I take back all I said with my rant about Double Strike. This thing will get big enough on its own to be a threat. Turn-Tipper Sower is next, presumably not from the enchantment deck, but from the Lands Matter deck. But whatever, let's talk about it anyway. It's a 3/3 for 3 mana, which creates a 0/1 plant token whenever a land is put into your graveyard from anywhere. Whether you mill it, discard it, or be a disgusting sadistic monster and destroy it, you get a little plant. You can also sacrifice 3 creatures to return a land from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so let's jive about this card. When I saw the Lands Matter stuff, it really didn't strike me as all that focused of a strategy, sort of how the Inala deck from last year was all over the place. But the more I try to postulate on what this deck wants to do, the more I see this as a weird manipulations of lands on the battlefield, cycling them in and out of the graveyard to gain some sort of advantage. I wouldn't go so far as to say this strikes me as a Lands Matter kind of deck, but more as a land-focused deck. I'm really not sure how to describe what this strategy really feels to me, but we'll talk about that again in another video. The next card is actually in the Enchantments deck and is one of the alternate commanders for it. Rocking perhaps my favorite artwork from the set so far is Castilla the Cultivator. She's a 4-mana 4/4 enchantment creature. Again, I'm really glad we're taking a lot of inspiration from Theros for this deck. She also has Bestow, the old Theros mechanic many enchantment creatures had, where she can be cast for 6 mana as an enchant aura on a target creature, instead of being a creature on her own. If she is an aura, she gives the enchanted creature +4/+4. Also, whenever an enchanted creature or an enchantment creature attacks, you get to draw a card. It's a bit of a funky wording, but hot pot of coffee, this is a good card. So right now, I'm sure many of you who are running enchantment decks are running cards like Starfield of Nyx and Opalescence. These two will make your enchantments into creatures as well, which work perfectly in tandem with Castilla, letting you draw a card for each of their attacks. This also gives an even more added card draw to an already bustling engine if you're running your enchantresses. This over and under is a wonderfully designed legend, and perhaps my favorite of the set so far. Hold the phone, might have spoken too soon. Erexmathes, the Slumbering Isle, is a 4-mana 12/12 Kraken, and hold on a second. 4 mana for a 12/12 legend. Well, there is a slight drawback to this thing. It enters the battlefield tapped with 5 slumber counters on it. Sounds like this thing knows how to play Magic the right way, being gigantic and threatening but choosing to be a sleeper instead. As long as this card has a slumber counter on it, it's a land and not a creature. Interestingly enough, not in the Lands Matter deck. Whatever, alrighty then. Whenever you cast a spell, you ping off a slumber counter, and it also can tap for both blue and green mana. This is a huge flavor win for blue and green. Tatiova will love this thing, and when it becomes a creature, it's huge. So I have no idea how clunky the deck would be, but we finally have a legend that I would think would work very well for a Sea Beast tribal deck. Involving a lot of green ramp is a great pick to run the giant Leviathan, Octopi, and other sea beasties that all cost a gazillion mana. I love it. Estrage Invocation is a 3-mana enchantment that can enter the battlefield as a copy of any enchantment you control, except at the beginning of your upkeep, you can blink it. Give me a moment. Okay, so I think we may have found the absolute best copy enchantment ability ever. This thing is loco. First off, you can copy any enchantment you control, whether it's an aura, a generic enchantment, an enchantment creature, and if you get bored of it being that enchantment or you need it to copy something else, you just blink it and start over. I know I said when we were first told that this was going to be a Bant enchantment deck that I wanted this deck. Now I think I need to sit outside my LGS the night before they release these things to make sure I get one. And it's only 3 mana. I always get frustrated when really good abilities are tacked onto cards that cost a ton of mana. Like, yeah, sure, I could do whatever slap-in-the-face ability this thing does, but not any time that I need it to do it soon. Speaking of Estrid, she is the cover card for this deck, and is a 4-mana 3-loyalty Planeswalker. She can +2 to untap each enchanted permanent you control. Me gusta, as this is a great inclusion for a Voltron deck. So she can possibly untap a non-vigilant creature that is sitting with a gazillion enchantments on it. She can also -1 to create a white aura enchantment token called Mask that is attached to another permanent we control. Masks have enchant permanent and totem armor. So totem armor was a mechanic back in Rise of Eldrazi that acted as sort of a layer of protection. If a creature that was enchanted with something with totem armor would be destroyed, you could simply just destroy the totem armor card and the creature would survive with everything else. This takes it to a whole new level of stupid. Now Estrid can give totem armor masks to all of our permanents, making it even harder to get rid of our best threats. It can give masks to any permanent we control, and especially when this deck has a strong Voltron leaning to it, look back at her +2, I find that this gives it a huge advantage. Giving a creature the ability to withstand several lethal moments is just beautiful. I do find it very peculiar that in a Voltron leaning deck, the commander, being Estrid, something not inherently able to attack, means that we do not have a constant access to one key creature to suit up to save the day like we would if we were running something like Rafik. But I feel we can get past this by running several powerful candidates to really drive it home when we get them into play. I will link in the description of this video the link to my old Rafik of the Many deck build that I made ages ago. It's still in the same shape, but it's still one of my favorite builds, and I feel that that deck could easily be interlaced with this deck strategy. And so perhaps check that one out in preparation for this deck. Estrid's ultimate is a -7. You mill the top 7 cards of your library. You then return all non-aura enchantments to the battlefield. And then you do the same for the aura enchantments. So Replenish, which is a staple recursion in an enchantment deck, and I would have speculated for this deck, it rose to over $70 at the recording of this, so it basically does the same thing. Honestly, given that Estrid does the same ability as Replenish, if not maybe a little more attuned to this deck, I really don't think it hurts you all that much to maybe skip running it if you can't afford it or don't already have it. But that ultimate is absurd, so definitely grab this deck when it comes out. Moving right along, we have Vasa the Sunlit, a 3-mana 1/1 Merfolk Shaman. Vasa gets +1/+1 for each enchantment we control, and we can draw a card whenever we cast our first enchantment for the turn. Wizards, baby, you're putting me in the spotlight. You give me something like this that wants to go in so many directions, but I don't have the brain capacity to figure it all out. That's why I love you. So firstly, another viable Enchantress commander, almost better in some instances than Castilla. We get the Enchantress ability on an understandably watered down capacity, and it'll get bigger the more enchantments we have in play. Even if you choose not to go with a Voltron style build with all the auras on this thing, it could still become huge and get out of control pretty easily. The other style of deck that this could be used for is a Bant Merfolk tribal deck. We've already got commanders for blue-white Merfolk, black-blue Merfolk, and blue and green Merfolk, but we never got a Bant Merfolk legend. And while yes, this creature does absolute jack to help the tribe, it does come in the colors we need to run the best cards from Merfolk, and it's better than nothing. I do also recall there being some Merfolk tribal enchantments floating around, so we'll have to explore the possibilities in perhaps a future commander theorem. Myth Unbound is a 3-drop enchantment that lets your commander cost 1 less mana for each time it's been cast from the command zone. Whenever your commander's put into the command zone from anywhere, you draw a card. So, Wizards, you really throwing out the screw the rules I have money argument here today, huh? Commander tax makes us pay 2 additional mana for each time we cast our commander. You say piss on that. Here's a card that lets you pay half that tax. Alright. You know, let's not overlook that card draw upon returning to the commander, to the command zone trigger. That's a thing too. You really want to give Prosh another pump? Food chain isn't good enough. You gotta make it better. Nah, of course not. I don't know what I'm talking about. Moving on, Ever-Watching Threshold is a 3-mana enchantment that gives you a card draw whenever an opponent attacks you or a planeswalker you control. Very nice. It's also really nice to see Sauron has found work after the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy to go and find himself a home right in my new Pillow Fort deck. Milius Colossus is a 7-mana enchantment creature with Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, you double target creature's power and toughness until end of what? Excuse me? Are you trying to have me have a heart attack here, Wizards? Because this kind of shtick is exactly the kind of nonsense that's going to break decks. Oh, it's fine, really. I'll just drop my commander and dump a few enchantments onto them, giving them whatever kind of nonsense effects the enchantments will bring with them, and then I'll just double the card's power and toughness each time. Do you realize what you're doing here? I'm pretty sure someone at R&D is overstepping a line with this. I know in a previous video that I said the Bant deck was probably going to be the one to get. It was mostly out of a vanity. I like Bant. I like enchantments. You gave me a late birthday present with it being all in one. But this is getting a little too far. I literally do not care that this costs 7 mana. I will cheat the ever-loving heck out of getting this into play. Watch me. Next. For the love of gods, next. Ravenous Slime. It's a handsome little 1/1 for 3 mana. It can't be blocked by anything that's a bear size or a weenie, and if a creature an opponent controls would die, it gets exiled. Then the slime gets +1 counters on it equal to the creature's power. The flavor text is killing me. I've seen enough to know where this is going. And with that, we bring our 3rd day of Commander spoilers to an end. What of these cards do you think are going into your decks? Do you like the enchantment deck as much as I do? I personally feel that this is going to be the runaway deck from this year's selection, so be sure to pick up the copy of the deck that you want as soon as you can, because they're really going to knock it out of the park this year. As always, if you enjoyed this little piece, do hit that like button and share it around so that others will know that it's worth their time. I thank you for stopping by to spend a little time with me here today, and if you're new to my channel, consider hitting subscribe and ring that little bell so YouTube's crappy notification system can notify you whenever we upload new content. We do have a Patreon if you'd like to help contribute to this channel's upping of the quality of content, perhaps moving into more live action video. And to all of you, my beloved Magic the Gathering community, to all you guys, gals, and my non-binary pals of my little fellowship, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll catch you all next upkeep. Play that outro music.
Summer in the hills, those hazy days I do remember. We were running still, had the whole world at our feet. Watching seasons change.